Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Creating Tailwinds Podcast by FlightPath Financial with your hosts, John Urbick and Jared Adams. Join us today as we discuss the power of infinite banking. And here we go. Gosh, a Super Bowl weekend, huh?
Yeah, coming up. I think it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Eagles and Kansas City. Who's going to win?
I can't vote for either of them. Can I vote that something bad happens during the game?
They get rained out, snowed out.
As a Buffalo Bills fan, I'm still crying. I'm still crying.
I know. I'm sorry.
I think that the Eagles are going to pull it off. If they can just keep giving it to Saquon and not stop, they're going to win.
And I'm with you. Well, I think you're right, but we'll see. We're on to our second podcast already. And thought we would just pick it up from where we left off last, which was talking about the problem of infinite banking. You know, what is the problem? And the problem is, in our lives, the volume of interest we pay. You look at all the different categories of expenses, whether it's our house, our car, living expenses, or our savings, and how we look at that spending equation, how we move that money through our hands. That's the real problem. It's not...
You said problem of infinite banking. You mean problem of just how money moves in general, right?
The problem that infinite banking identifies,
That's what I'm talking about. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So, really, people spend all their time worrying about the interest rate, don't they?
Sure.
And it's not the interest rate. What is it?
It's the volume.
Volume of interest. Absolutely.
That's right.
And so... Take a swing at that one, Jared. What is the volume of interest, and why is that important?
To me, the volume means an actual dollar amount that leaves my system in interest, not necessarily a percentage rate. If I got a 2.375% interest rate on a mortgage, that just looks at the annual APR, and it doesn't talk about what the amortization schedule looks like, how much money left my system in that first 1, 2, 5 years.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, we talked last podcast about a mortgage, how somebody holds it for 5 years and moves.
Sure.
86% of that mortgage is just interest.
That's right.
What they've paid. Absolutely crazy. So that's the problem. That is the problem that we've got to solve. Yep. And it's sitting right in front of us. And most people are not aware of this. And that's what our job is. Our mission is to bring this to them.
That's right.
And let people make their own decisions. But we'll deliver the facts, won't we?
I love it. So that's discussing the problem. Then that's a bigger picture, kind of a wider aperture look at that, right? We'll try to identify what the problem is, because as Nelson would have said, if you don't know what the problem is, you don't know what the solution is.
That's exactly right.
You got to identify the problem, right?
That's all right.
Yep.
So if we approach this to address that problem, we can use something called dividend paying life insurance, properly constructed, and that's what IBC practitioners are designed these things to do, is to deliver a solution. Because if you can create your own economic environment, you can create your own financial tailwind.
Love that.
So what is that? I mean, comment on that. How do you view that?
I mean, we've given it the aviation spin, right? We know as aviators what it looks like to, look down at your ground speed that shows 680 knots across the ground.
Yeah.
You're not achieving that on your own.
No.
So I equate that to the environment and the system that you're in to know what that looks like. I cannot make that aircraft go 680 knots. Not without some supersonic transport piece that could be a whole other, conversation in itself. I cannot make that aircraft do 680. So in order for that to cover the 680 across the ground, I've got to have the environment to do so. I can't make the aircraft go another 20% faster. So it kind of equate that to, the discussion of everybody gets all up in arms about getting that extra 4.5% or 5.5% on their interest, right?
Right.
If they completely ignored that and even only got 1%, yet they were in a tailwind that caused 20% by their own system, yet everybody steps over these monster gains that are available in order to just focus on the water cooler discussion of what that looked like.
Exactly right. They're looking at that 10, 15, perhaps 20% that they're trying to save and maximizing their rate of return there, and they're ignoring the 80%.
Yep.
And if they just step back from this whole equation and say, hey, how could I incorporate improving that 80%? It's not unlike flying. You look at changing altitudes. You talked about a tailwind. Well, what do? We say, hey, we're at 310. We can go to 350. What are the winds up there?
Yep.
Part of the process. That's what a pilot's doing. He's looking at the winds. And I'm flying with Jared, and Jared says, hey, if we go to 350, we're going to pick up another 20 knots tailwind. Let's go.
Yeah.
So we coordinate, and we climb to 350, and voila. You're doing the same thing. You're going from the same point A to the same point B, but you've just improved your situation dramatically.
All by the environment.
We
can't change the environment in that world.
Exactly.
So the piece of the financial piece here we're talking about is that you can access and control your environment to get on board to create what that might look like. Am I saying that right? Would you agree with that piece?
I would absolutely agree with that piece, Jared. And because remember, when we talk about our money in banks, where do banks get money to loan? Do they have any money? I mean, so you go through the whole process. Let's say you set up your own bank. Nelson talks about this, where you go through all of the regulatory procedures. You get your people out there who are going to fund your bank. Until the first dollar is loaned, you're not making a penny on that bank. You have all this expense going in, and nothing is being created at that point. Until what? Until somebody makes a deposit. Yep. And that first deposit, what happens? It might be an interesting time to transition into what happens with our money.
So that's really kind of going towards the fractional reserve banking system.
Bingo.
Am I saying that right?
You are absolutely saying it right.
Yep. And that's how they're set up.
It was, and there's a whole geek discussion on this, and Jared will shoot me if I get into it, but it goes back to 1913 Federal Reserve Act, and 5 bankers met in the darkness of night, and they gave us what is now today's central banking system. That this whole monstrosity that we sit on, this fractional reserve banking system sits on, how money moves in our country, was based upon. The fractional reserve banking allows the bank to lend out a certain percentage of the deposit. Say they can lend out 90%. So they take in $1,000, they can lend out $900. And then that goes to the next bank, and that bank can lend out 90% or $890 or whatever that figure is.
That's right.
And it goes on. I think, Jared, you have some data to back that up, right?
Yeah, I ran the numbers on that before we started. That $1,000 into the bank shows up as a $900 loan just from the first one.
Right.
So the first loan goes to the next person from my $1,000.
Yeah.
And now the bank can make money on that $900.
Yep.
That person takes the $900, puts it into their bank, someone else's bank. That bank can then loan $810.
Yes.
If you follow that through a course of 6 loans, or turn over my $1,000 deposit into the bank, turn that over 6x, your $1,000 has turned into $5,217 and change.
Incredible.
Right? So I had to work really hard to get that $1,000. How does it turn into just over $5,200?
Well, a more fundamental question is, how much are you getting for that deposit? You're putting that $1,000 into the bank. What are they giving you for your money?
Well, everybody would cry about a money market that they're making 5% on. Yeah. If you're at the actual checking bank, you may be getting 0.05%.
Right.
At best.
How much is a car loan?
Car loan probably now is 7 to 8%.
Okay, 7 8% times how many X?
6x. 6
times 7 or 8%?
Right.
56% on your 0 point nothing money.
Yep.
That is fractional reserve banking. It is the craziest thing, but that's how this operates. Think about this. If the only monies that are backstopping your deposit are their reserves, and the reserves are, say, and generously 10%, they're loaning out 90% of your money, and the next guy's doing it, and the next guy's doing it. What would it be like if you had a car and you wanted money from me to buy that, or to purchase the car? And I said, sure, I'll lend you the money. And so I give you the money, you buy the car. And then you have another project and you need that same $20,000 again.
Sure.
And you turn to the next guy and say, hey, I need 20 grand. I'll give you a lien against my car. And you do that 6 times.
So I'll have through the course of that 20 grand, I'll owe about 120 grand out there to 6 different people. Well, then what happens when I default on one of them?
Who gets the money?
Which 6? Who's got the best lawyer, I guess? Right?
That is the money system we're in right now, and it's all based on what? Trust. In the full faith and credit of the United States government, and we've just hit what? $37 trillion?
Yep.
Can we do something about this?
Sure.
What can we do?
Well, the IBC practitioner would tell you that you can create your own tailwinds.
You certainly
can.
can.
You can create a system that does keep these funds into your own system, to create your own financial tailwinds, to then be able to access this money that the insurance company would loan you through the cash value of the dividend paying whole life insurance policy, right?
Yeah.
So when you start looking to peel those layers back a little bit, some terms you're going to hear often in this podcast are cash value, death benefit, dividend paying whole life insurance, properly structured. So a quick recap on those. The cash value is the equity of your death benefit, right? So when we start to look at what that looks like, when we say that you're borrowing funds from your cash value, you're using the insurance's money and you're going to put it to use. But now when you're paying the loan back, because you're not going to steal the peas, when you're paying that back, it's ending up back in your system.
Yeah, exactly right. It's just, you said it much more simply, but the technical definition of the cash value is the present value of the death benefit less the surrender value.
Yep.
So the surrender value is the true present value of those dollars.
That's right. But
because of all how important the time value of the money is and future contributions, it all rolls into that mix. But your explanation was spot on, exactly right. So what do you say to the guy who says, "Look, I don't need any of this. I'll just pay cash"?
Well,
I'm not gonna take a note out. I'll just pay cash.
You get kind of the same system, right? That cash had to sit somewhere during that process. So when you made the money through your work, when you exchanged your time for money, that money sat somewhere. So you're kind of already devaluing your money just by allowing these other, bank systems to take that somewhere else and loan it 20, 30 different times. So you're kind of devaluing the money already. Not to mention, if you save, and then spend the cash, what was the opportunity cost that you lost of that cash leaving your system? You're
kind of whittling down to what Nelson called the first principle, right?
Right.
On that money.
Sure.
Interest. Well, do we always pay interest when money changes our hands?
Every single time.
Every single time. Why? Yeah. What if so obviously if I go to a bank and I borrow money at 8%, I'm going to pay that bank 8%, and that money I will never see again. That's going to the bank's coffers, not to mine.
That's right.
But what if I pay cash? Am I losing there?
I mean, you're not losing, but you're not gaining either. You've gained the product that you've purchased.
Okay, so what about the opportunity cost? What about the future value going forward? All the interest that I will not make on that money because I just passed it off in cash.
That's well said.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, you see, you're going to pay interest one way or the other. You cannot escape the cost of interest. You're either going to pay somebody else for the use of their money, or you're going to forfeit all the interest that you would have otherwise made on that money had you not paid cash.
Yeah, that's spot on.
So, yeah, it's a big deal. And the more people realize that, look, if I just could find a mechanism, a vehicle where I could control my economic environment, what would that do to me long term? This process, and it is a process. Infinite banking is not a thing; it's a process. It's generational. It's something that you do over time, and the sooner you get started, the more powerful it becomes. It's always valuable at any age, but it's even more valuable the earlier you start.
Yep.
What do you think?
I mean, to me, that kind of leans like it's going down towards one of the chapters of the book that says you're trying to create a bank like the one you know.
Yeah.
So you're trying to create, they have their fractional reserve system. We may not create it on that level, but we're creating our own little in-house bank of which you're accessing the capital through and gaining the interest of. Just like you had said, you've lost that interest that you would have gained.
What's interesting about what you just said is you could create a bank just like the other banks, but I would advance that we're doing a much better job with the money by creating our own bank. Why? Because the bank, every time they loan out money, it's inflationary. It devalues. We live in one pool of money throughout the world.
Yep.
And so when banks create money, and they create it like crazy, they're actually devaluing the dollars out there. When you and I build our infinite banking policy,
sure,
we're putting money into this thing, and it's guaranteed dollar for dollar against our liability. And so there is no inflation with a life insurance contract. So it's a beautiful thing. You could have the entire United States move to this process, and you would markedly change the inflationary trajectory of the country.
Yeah.
Markedly.
Yep. And that kind of builds on the previous episode where we were talking about the uninterrupted compound growth.
Precisely.
Yep. So if you haven't seen episode 1, go back, check it out. Very spot on reference to the uninterrupted compound growth.
Right on, Jared. Yep. Absolutely right on.
So moving on into through the book, we were talking about the Becoming Your Own Banker book by R. Nelson Nash. One of the other topics that comes up is how you create that bank. We understand what the bank is, but we don't necessarily know what that looks like on the creation piece. Do you want to maybe touch on that, just what that looks like?
Yeah, there's been a proliferation of, bank on yourself or become your own banker. There's a lot of people that are out there talking about this. And you'll see just hundreds of videos, literally. If you go out there and you look at them, you're going to see all kinds of things. So it's not all bad. I mean, for sure, there's some excellent stuff out there. But there's some misleading things, too. So I think it's important, if you want to spin up to speed on this concept, you can talk to Jared or I, or talk to any certified infinite banking practitioner, because those people have been specially schooled in this process. And it makes all the difference in the world to the success or failure of your effort to become your own banker. And it is absolutely available to everyone. Doesn't matter how much you make. You can make a little, you can make a lot. And this stuff works. And the sooner you start, the better off you're going to be. And the benefit to you are so numerous, we could do a podcast on each one of those benefits, and maybe we will down the road, Jared.
Yeah. But I had someone approach me when I was talking about this topic, and they had said, no, I already did that whole life piece, completely got bit, I'll never do it again.
Right.
And it almost made me cringe, because it made me feel so bad that someone had been taken advantage of, sold a product that had a certain promise and not a certain delivery. And not only that, but they didn't enter into that unknowingly. They did so with their own knowledge.
Yeah.
And then yet didn't have enough of the background piece or the education piece to really know that wasn't the product for them, or that wasn't in their best interest, right? So it was a sad story, because he thought about money in the right way. His wife, I've met both of them, she thought about money in the right way. They both understood the concept of not stealing the peas. You can't overspend what you make. If you do, this is not really a great concept for you or your family.
No, this is a discipline.
Yeah.
You have to treat your money with respect. If you don't do that, it's like anything. If you have an automobile and you don't take care of it, you don't do the maintenance, it's going to break down. It's going to look terrible. And when you go to sell it 7 years down the road, you're going to get less money for it, because it hasn't been maintained. Just like anything you own your own money.
Yep.
So take care of your finances.
What's the chassis? What are they using, right? Because we want, as a part of our education piece, we want you to go do the research.
Absolutely.
I don't want the guy or gal that goes through the policy that we create to 6 years down the road go, I've been had. Because that would never, ever be the goal of creating your own tailwinds. Yeah. So it takes a little bit of research on your end. Like, go see what you're getting involved in. See all of the guarantees that are provided by this, and all of the positive aspects that will and can happen. But this is a joint venture. The best way to put it would be that you're respecting your money, like you said earlier, right? You've got to get that going in the right direction to know where that piece is, what it sits as.
Yeah, you're going to build these a very, very specific way, and there's a lot of bad information out there where they're improperly using term. They're improperly using other kinds of insurance, which are derivative products like universal life and variable life. Those are not appropriate for infinite banking.
Sure.
And we can do a whole different podcast on the kinds of insurance. But you want solid, dividend-paying, whole life insurance with certain attributes that we'll get into later on. But importantly, just get good guidance. I think back to my early days when I was learning infinite banking, and I ran across another practitioner, Mary Jo Ehrman. Mary Jo is one of the superstars out there in this space. We had a discussion, and I was telling her about one of my problem clients and a couple things, and says, "Wow, Mary Jo's very matter of fact. And she goes, well, are you asking this? Are you asking this? It was a rapid fire of questions. And I thought, gosh, this girl asks a lot of questions. So from Mary Jo, my takeaway is I need to ask way more questions than I'm asking. And so the takeaway that I'm trying to convey here is that if your practitioner is not getting to know you extremely well through a deep process of questioning, and there are going to be some questions may be uncomfortable because we're talking finances, they're not doing their job. It's not a product delivered. It is a process developed over time.
Speaking of questions that you might get asked that are difficult from your practitioner, I had a question come from a potential client, and they were talking about what it looked like in terms of why it took so long, and by so long I'm talking in multiple years, to build this up, right? I made sure that they understood that this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is not an investment. This is the controlling of your capital, and there's some startup costs that show up to that. There takes a little bit of time to get this jet engine up to cruise altitude and working at its most efficient level. Would you maybe just expand on that a little?
Sure, and you talked a little bit about this last podcast, Jared. I thought it was an excellent example. You're taking off in a jet, you're rolling down the runway, and you're burning a ton of gas. The most gas you're going to burn is on takeoff per minute. Why? Because you're the heaviest. You have a very low energy state, and you've got to transfer the energy from the fuel into motion and getting that airplane in the air. And so the more you fly, you're burning off gas, the aircraft is getting lighter, and you're climbing higher, the air is thinner, and jets perform better at higher altitudes. You're getting more and more efficient. The same kind of things happen with a IBC policy. Think about this. To put it into more concrete terms, you're going to open up a coffee store.
Sure.
And the coffee shop has, you say, okay, I'm going to have this theme, so I need my equipment. I need the coffee makers. I need the product. I need to turn the lights on. I got to pay the rent, and I got to hire personnel.
Some marketing, some advertising, all the pieces of expenses that could go into that business.
Precisely.
Right?
And, and how much have you made selling coffee at that point?
Not a dime.
Nothing.
Yep.
Yet Starbucks has done pretty well, hasn't it?
Sure.
I mean, there are startup costs. So you have to have the longer view of what's happening with the money. Once you control the money, and this is no different. If you've ever seen all these teaser rates with banks and credit card companies, they want your business. They're giving up something to get your money. You got to ask yourself, why?
Yep.
It's control of capital. That is the secret sauce.
Yep.
Because once you control the capital, you can control the outcome.
That's right. Well, I guess maybe to wrap us up here today, remember that you can get in touch with us and get a hold of us through our website, as you'll know as you'll see in the final notes. And we would love the opportunity to chat more about what it looks like, whether it's an education piece, if you've got a lot of questions, or you're just learning, or whether or not you're ready to take those next steps. Anything to add in the outro?
No, I think you said it beautifully. Yes, we are here as a resource first for you. We'd love to answer your questions. If you've heard anything out there and you want to find out, hey, is this accurate? Is this true? We'll be happy to handle that question. Even if you don't do business with us, we'll always pick up the phone. We'll always talk with you.
I agree. Yep.
You know, that's who we are. It's about it's a team effort, and we're all in this big old world together, and we want everybody to win.
Got that. Or keep creating your financial tailwinds. Thanks for joining us.
All right, Jared, thanks again. We'll see you in the next podcast. We'd like to thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Creating Tailwinds podcast with your hosts, John and Jared. As always, we welcome your questions and critiques. You can reach us through the Contact Us tab at flightpathfinancial.com. Remember, it's all about how you think. As Nelson Nash has said about infinite banking, give it your close attention, and it can make a radical improvement in your financial future.